cool would it be to have an Airbnb experience tied to your listing? When you have the capacity to create additional income, it doesn't become a discussion about my occupancy rates. This is the answer, period.
All right, team. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Presume yes. Okay, good deal. Well, welcome, and first of all, thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to join the call. Talk a little bit about your space, what we're offering, Newark, and then I presume that everyone's had an opportunity to look at the investment packet. So this will largely be designed for me to hit a few high points, and then take any questions that you all may have pertaining to the investment opportunity. So, so with that, I'll get started just by introducing a few members of the Your Space team that by and large has been responsible for everything that we've done in the past and that we're currently doing. So Winston's the operations lead. He handles everything after the source phase, which is leading to what Davina does with the design team and install team. So our framework operationally is set up where we've got the source, which is essentially the acquisition phase, where I'm primarily responsible for taking on a lot of the administrative overhead, negotiation with deals, and then the football's handed off to Winston, where he starts to build a team around one of the interior designers, depending on where the project is. Davina is our lead designer, and she's been with the Your Space team for a couple of years, so she's well versed in what we like to do with each of our properties. Heba, Tiffany, and Erica have all done projects with the Your Space team. Heba most recently in Arlington, Texas. Tiffany's assisting right now with the 13 units in Newark. Erica recently did a couple units in Texas, as well as e-design for a unit in Canada, all within the last month and a half. We've got two photographers who operate nationally, so they serve as a hub for photographers, where we simply send the requisition through them. They go out, find the right photographers with the right skill set. Those photos bleed back through them before they come to us for publishing. And then noted also here, bottom left-hand corner, Marie, our VA, Kiera, who's also an intern, currently a student at Georgia State University, but she's been phenomenal with the team, and she's also just taken on her first investment. So it's been pretty exciting to see. And Sasha, he's come on board to serve as a site lead for us. So again, Your Space, we've invested over 100 properties on both sides of the border since 2018. So the takeaway here is that we've had a chance to see a lot and operate across a lot of markets, which means that the data that's put in front of you has a lot of experience behind it. So in most cases, most of what we're stand by. Get rid of this beeping sound here. Okay, so in most cases, the data that's put in front of you it's coming from a lot of experience here on our end. So what does the turnkey Airbnb investment process look like? Well, for starters, we take care of all the administrative overhead, right, for investors. So that means whether you are a busy professional, whether you have legal concerns in your locale, or whether you're just hitting speed bumps, right, with respect to finding homeowners and or apartment complexes that will allow you to Airbnb. We've again been able to tap into our resources and experience, and we've been able to do that fairly well. So we've turned that into this process now where we're able to provide that to investors, as some of you on this call have had a chance to experience here more recently. But all the administrative overhead, so that simply means everything that goes into building out an Airbnb property, we take care of. In most cases, we are master leasing homes, so that gives us the ability to bring investors in for a minimum of 36 months with each investment that they invest into. Everything else goes into my company's name, whether it's utilities, permits, internet, you name it. If it's tied to an administrative function of operating an Airbnb, we are securing that on investors' behalf. We then have professional interior design teams, as I noted earlier, with a few of the interior designers that we've worked with. So we're able to tap into a network of interior designers that do phenomenal work. Winston then builds teams around those interior designers, as we're doing in Newark currently, to help this whole process of building out these Airbnbs come to life. So whether it's one property or 13, the same process goes in place to help facilitate that. Once we're past the design and install phase, we move into the steady state or management phase in this case. And the way we're structured currently, we source or tap into experienced co-hosts, and in some cases, depending on the geographical location, we've already got an experienced team in place that we are essentially handing the football off to. So your space, in some cases, we don't hold a financial interest in most of these investments after the initial investment with investors. So big picture here for investors, what does this look like on your end, right? Once we conduct our market research and analysis for these properties, we then build investment package that you all have seen. You get a chance to socialize that, and then it should allow you to either draw a conclusion that you're ready to invest, or allow you to ask additional questions with that particular investment. Normally, we schedule an on-ramp call. Once investors have went through a packet, they've got additional questions, we'll schedule time to sit down and walk through any questions or concerns they have. Once investors are committed to the investment, we will draft up a memorandum of understanding. That is simply a 1 or 4-page high-level overview of the investment that spells out the investment at a high level. That comes to you in an invoice via PayPal, and it gives you all the instructions you need to facilitate the payment. Once payments are made for the investments, we then take those investments officially off the market. And then in the background, we're drafting up the operations agreement. The operations agreement becomes the binding document between the investor and your space, essentially creating our partnership for the investment. That's your opportunity to add or take away language in detail pertaining to the investment. So anything that you may have concerns about that's not mentioned in the MOU, don't worry about it, because we want to put the meat and potatoes inside of the document that counts. which is the operations agreement. So the MOU really serves as a handshake for us to begin our deal. Inside of the invoice, you'll see a line item breakdown, so you know exactly what you're paying for. Within that, we usually break up, depending on the timeline, we usually break up the payments into 2 milestones. And that's really designed to separate the admin costs for the investment from the furnishing and vendor fees. Again, it's all timeline dependent, and in some cases project dependent. And this particular investment, we're going to operate on one timeline because we're essentially doing a capital raise on the front end to take on as many properties as we can. Again, the operations agreement, it gives you a chance to review it, have your legal team review it, give some feedback. If there are major changes that have to go into it, we will pass that along to our legal team, or lawyer Eric, so then it becomes a discussion between people that do this stuff for a living and not us. Execution, it's ongoing throughout the process, and I'll go down here to the next slide. So some of you are familiar with Basecamp. If you're not, Basecamp is a project management tool that allows teams to collaborate in real time. And depending on your usage or knowledge of Basecamp, it can become a very effective tool, especially when you're putting together large projects. We use Basecamp for projects large and small, but it allows us to have a great degree of transparency with the entire process with our investors. IGMS right now is the software we use as a channel manager. All that means for investors is that we bring you into IGMS as an owner for the property you're invested in, which then means you have the same visibility in IGMS that we have as the listing admin on Airbnb or VRBO. So everything comes back through IGMS, your guest communications, your calendar. You can have visibility on housekeeping tasks. And then most importantly for investors, you can pull your financials. As some investors do, you can go in and look at the report sheet, or you can pull it into a CSV file, send that over to your accountant to keep track of your P&L. But the whole intent here is to make sure investors have full transparency with each platform that their property is listed on, and it gives us, again, one place to make sure everybody's seeing the same thing. So I've talked quite a bit for the last 10 minutes. I'm going to pause here for any questions before going on to the next slide. Okay, good deal. So there may be a question, why Newark, right? Town just comes out of nowhere and becomes the Airbnb epicenter of the Northeast. I thought the same thing, but it took me 5 minutes to do some research and figure out why. And it simply boils down to pre-COVID, New York City was the mecca of Airbnb, period. There was not another market that allowed you to rent a 400 square foot apartment for $300 a night consistently, regardless of its location in New York City and regardless of its condition. That is the ground truth. We had 3 properties early on in New York. We kept those for a couple years, and we exited right as COVID hit the market pretty hard. With COVID in New York also came an opportunity for New York to make amends with Airbnb. They were legally fighting for years, and that's not new news to most of you who've been following Airbnb, because New York City per capita had the most hosts in the country, and for a good reason. But again, COVID changed the landscape of Airbnb. The city struck a deal with New York City, and now, in order to Airbnb in New York City, it has to be a 30-day or more rental. I think even in some cases, if you live in the home, if it's in a brownstone type community, you still cannot share that space. So there are major restrictions in New York City that significantly reduce Airbnb in New York City. And in the lower right-hand corner, the next biggest city to New York City, right across the river, Jersey City, which would have been primed to take on, right, all that New York City offered the international community at one point, but they followed with the same type of restrictive legislation on short-term rentals, which now brings us to Newark, right? Positioned 18 miles or 18 minutes by train or bus to New York City. Newark is now in a position where they have on the books right now a little less than 1,000 Airbnbs. But as we're starting to see, even in the few rentals we have currently operating in the market, international travel is starting to pick up. As international travel begins to pick back up, Newark will be the only city positioned to absorb what New York City used to carry, right? So this is prime time opportunity in a city that is now undergoing a major infrastructure revitalization, if you want to call it that. But yeah, so that's the answer to this pop quiz question. Why Newark? Airbnb New York City, Airbnb Jersey completely wiped them out from a competition standpoint. So Newark naturally will absorb a lot of what's to come with international travel into New York City. And the one other point to note with that is that we have very few hubs, as we call them, that are true destination locations across the country. New York City, certainly one just due to the travel tourism and New York City just being New York City. It will return to being that post-COVID. And a couple other markets I like to note, Charleston, Savannah, Georgia, to name a few, but those few destination locations, regardless of the time of the year and when or where we've operated in those markets, they've proved that to be true, that they're unique in their own capacity, and they continue to do well. So we're going into Newark full on with a boatload of people and a boatload of units behind it. And we're going to position ourselves to take on all that's coming back to New York City. Any questions before I go on? All right, so I'll do a quick overview of this investment. So Hotel Indigo, it's not currently operating. It is being purchased as we speak by a new group of developers that are investing heavily in the revitalization of downtown Newark. We expect this closing to happen within the next 30 days, which will position us administratively to start leases mid-August to early September. As I noted, investments will be 36 months. My company, we will master lease each place that we're offering. Most are studio one bedrooms. As of right now, the prices that are listed are $1,000 off of where they will be. Just in case there's a question that there's not money coming off, but if you come in early, then you're going to save on the front end. Still negotiating the exact terms, but what we've pre-positioned will be 2 free months. We just don't know when those months will come on. The second bullet there talks about unit aggregation strategy to target larger groups and families. So the question that I've fielded over the last couple of days, well, how can small 1-bedroom or studio places take a head-to-bed ratio strategy? I'll walk through it in the next slide, but we do a lot of listing aggregation, right? So whether you have 2 units or 4 units or 9 units, we creatively aggregate listings or rooms or homes in some cases to create unique head-to-bed ratios that give us a unique position in the market. And as most of you have heard me talk and preach and shout about value, this largely becomes no different than anything else. But all we want to do is get into a market and we create something that doesn't exist. So we position ourselves to do well in the market. And by proxy, we eliminate a competition, at least outside of our building. The location, don't need to pounce on it, right? It's 18 minutes to the city. It's downtown Newark, walking distance to Rutgers, Prudential Center, and the hotel itself. Just to talk about a few amenities, it's got a restaurant. It's going to have a new spa, upgraded gym. The rooms themselves will have Murphy beds, which are the beds that fold into the walls. So it'll give us more operational capacity within the rooms during the daytime. There will also be a small kitchenette added to the room. So they'll have some degree of functionality. But again, the major selling points here, you're going to have traditional hotel amenities in a commercial mixed-use building that's used for short-term rentals, which is a huge plus. So you've got the restaurant again. You've got a rooftop bar that was pretty popular with the city prior to the hotel being shut down, and again, just traditional hotel amenities that'll come along with the space that will be great marketing and selling points for the investment, or for short-term rentals rather. So I'll talk a little bit about our value analysis slide. Now this may look like a bunch of weird math, but I'll walk through it so you'll kind of understand our philosophy as we look at markets, and hopefully it'll make some sense to you. And then I'll take questions after this on this. So I'm going to read from left to right. The far left block highlights travel demographics, right? We simply believe that markets don't exist without travelers. So you've got to first understand the traveler demographics before you can position a unit to do anything in the market. Right now, I always talk about Disney World. The demographics for families traveling to Disney World significantly changed from 1980 to now. Disney World itself, right, in this case, should not be the reason why we invest in a market, but to understand the people that are traveling then gives us the right data to offer them what they need, right? Because Disney World is just Disney World. But if the demographics are changing and you don't understand that, you're going to eventually be left behind, right? Like my Toys R Us analogy. So I've got 10 traveler demographics listed here. So that's just based on our market research and analysis to understand the market. Some of these are pretty common: family with kids and pets, family with kids and pets. You've always got to make sure your units are positioned to take on those, or you're just leaving money on the table. Everything else, it's related more specifically to either amenities that the hotel offers, or what's in and around the city. The red lines in this case go from large groups, bridal shower, or events in this case to head to bed ratio. Which leads me to the middle block, which simply allows us to look at value gaps. Our value gaps are assessed initially based on the amenities that you find in Airbnb or VRBO, right? It's right in front of you. The amenities that are offered help us understand what's missing in a market when we go into Airbnb just to do a quick check on the market. We understand where gaps exist. Once we understand where gaps exist, we then get to take this little chart and then go over to the right-hand column, which then gets us to what we term as unique value. Anytime you position a listing that has unique value in the market, you are not competing in the market or with most other homes in the market. You are operating on a level or at a capacity to where you're able to, in most cases, dictate pricing. And that's where I ultimately say if we get to that point, we're winning. But in this case, I'll draw you from large groups to head to bed ratio. The gap that's found in the market here is that that far downtown in Newark, you don't have many listings minus the ones that we put up at the William here recently. You don't have many listings that far downtown that sleep more than 7 to 8 people. And the reason why is because it's apartment heavy in urban areas like Newark. All that means is that understanding that when we go back to our previous slide, when I talked about aggregating listings, that is all we're going to position ourselves to do here. That will allow us to then market those listings with a head to bed ratio advantage at a significantly higher price, because groups that come in that are looking, that have groups that large, or travelers that are coming in that have groups that large won't have many homes or places to choose from. So we're simply going to aggregate them and position ourselves to have some uniqueness set in the market. So I know the next question is, well, how do you do that with 50 different investors? Well, we have an investor discussion essentially, right? We talk about, in good faith, investors grouping together as partners in this case to combine their listings. That then creates a partnership between those investors, where we spell out in an operating agreement that investor A and investor B and investor C agree to split evenly the profits on any bookings for A, B, and C unit. And it's as simple as that. And in most cases, we haven't had pushback from investors because they simply see the value in having 3 versus 2 in my short analogy. I'll pause here for any questions from the group.
So Cav, with regards to joining the listings, do they split the reservations that come in as one big listing, or all the reservations?
Tawana?
Yeah. Did you hear me? I'm sorry.
Can you repeat that, please?
For the listings that are joined together, do they split it when it's booked together, or just all the time?
Only when it's booked. So you'll maintain your individual listing for your individual property. Then the group listing will be linked in Airbnb. There's a parent-child tree that allows you to create the parent unit, which in this case would be the aggregated listing unit. And then you get to select each unit that's aligned with that parent unit. So if it's 3, 4, 5, doesn't matter. We link them together so that the units operate individually. And then as dates are booked on the individual listings, it blocks out the larger listing so that the dates aren't double booked. And if the dates on the larger listing are booked, it blocks out those dates on the individual listings so they're not double booked. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
I had a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, so if you're targeting larger groups, like on the screen says 12 to 6, are y'all having issues with partiers? And if you are or aren't, how are y'all, I guess, preventing that from happening?
So that's a great question. I think everybody who's been doing Airbnb for more than a couple of days has likely experienced something happening in their unit that they didn't approve of. We don't tend to have issues with large groups simply because we make them pay money, which then means we have leverage in the deal in their stay. That's how we mitigate that. I've personally had that issue once, but I kept $1,200 in the deal. So a lot of it just becomes your mitigation strategies, the questions you ask, and as larger groups come in, one you charge, right, for heads over maybe 6 or 8, and then you require a security deposit. In most cases, for a group of 16, which would be significantly large, I wouldn't charge less than $1,200 as a security deposit against any potential damages. So that becomes, in my opinion, based on my experience, the number one way to mitigate issues with large groups. But we haven't, by and large, even across the many markets that we're operating in, had issues with larger groups, just based on the strategy here. And a lot of it's just market dependent. So the thing I will tell you, and Kenny can probably attest to this, he's a Newark native. He's got a couple investments in Newark. Every locale is different, right? Newark is, it's a city. If you've ever been to a city that has a number of different demographics, Newark is one of those. So you're more prone in cities like Newark to have bad apples than you are in a Savannah, Georgia, for example. I'll take a group of 16 in Savannah and I won't think twice about it because it's a destination. They're coming for very specific things. And in most cases, most of these hosts or guests already have 4 or 5 5-star reviews coming with them. But, in this case, what we see a lot of poking and prodding of folks that are looking to come and potentially hang out, right, that live around the corner. So yes, there is a possibility. I'll never downplay that to an investor, but we want to make sure that that we can mitigate as much as possible, and the way you do that, in my opinion, is through security deposits.
Hey, Kev, it's Winston.
Hey, Winston, go ahead.
Hey, can you hear me? Yeah, I made it on the call. Was in a little late. I'm actually heading up to Newark right now. I wasn't sure if I confirmed that with you, but I'm heading up there right now to check on the place tomorrow and take a look for myself as we get things together. But just wanted to comment real quickly on that question, which is a phenomenal question, and a question that comes up a lot with regard to the security of their investment. And, we've got certain practices that we use with regard to, looking at that first-time guest. We have security that we enable at times with doorbell cams and other things. And in addition to, I'll just say, worst case scenario, there is a particular guest that comes in and does decide to leave a deposit and doesn't care about the deposit and decide to have a good time. The main focus from that point forward is getting the guest out that's going through the process through the platform. And then in addition to that, getting the place rental ready immediately for another guest to get in there. So that's just kind of the process we rapidly go through to get people out and get the place immediately rent ready for the next guest to get in. Just wanted to make that note, because it's I mean, when it happens. So we're typically looking at the next guest and making sure it's ready to go. That's it.
Yeah, that's a great point. And, you know, a lot of that's just due to our experience, right? And understanding that things will happen. So we've got to immediately start to focus on the next day, which means we take issues, but we're immediately looking to resolve them internally, and we'll let Airbnb, verbal, or insurance run its course to get us reimbursed if need be. Any questions on the value analysis slide?
Hey, Gav, this is Sean.
Hey, Sean.
Hey, just a couple, since this is a little bit different than a typical apartment, we're dealing more with hotels or hotel rooms. How does it compare, say, to a typical 1 bedroom, 1 bath, where you have like a full kitchen, maybe a larger living area? And with that also, what will be the range, I guess, for head to bed ratio, say, for one of these rooms? I know we were talking about combining, but if you only have one room, what would be the range for that be?
Yeah, no, great question, Sean. So this is where I love to look at problems like this and really think creatively outside of the box, and especially with the notion that these rooms will be outfitted with Murphy beds, which simply means that we can get rid of the king bed and potentially have 4 twin beds in the same space, right? That allows us to increase the head to bed ratio for that particular room. So what we intend to do really is maintain the queen beds, and then have a stock on each floor of fold-away beds that will simply allow us to give guests the opportunity to expand if they book, and as long as they understand what they're getting, in this case, either a floor mattress or a foldable cot, then the decision point to take that on is on the guest. So we're just simply looking to make sure that we have the beds available, and then we allow guests to do what they want with it inside of the space. But we will advertise based on Davina's recommendations for the rooms when she looks at them from a design standpoint, the bed, the space, what we can reasonably fit in there, with the bed being in the up position or with the bed being in the down position. And then we'll make a determination based on that, how each listing will be outfitted.
And then the average daily rate would be more along the lines of like what you would do on a 1 bedroom, 1 bath type place.
So right now, just based on the amenities offered within the hotel, I'd say somewhere ideally between 150 to 175 a night, and that's on the low end for the smaller units. And then we'd look at the other larger units, obviously, that we can increase the head to bed ratio, going up to somewhere between 200 to 225. Sean, you there?
I am, yes, thank you. I don't know if you want to talk to this as it pertains to value, but obviously in Newark, parking, or any big city, I guess parking would be a major issue. What would be the parking situation for this particular building?
Great question. As I understand, there will be no parking that will be provided with the hotel. We will rely on local parking garages and local parking lots that we'll inform guests of.
Very good, thank you.
Hey, Kev, it's Winston again. I was just going to add a quick note with regard to the Murphy bed, and how that Murphy bed can just add an additional dynamic to how to use that space, not just from the head to bed space ratio, but from the event usage as well. That's if the space was being used for, let's say, a photographer to bring in a couple customers to do some home style type photography, or even small production where interviews were held inside there. So that bed really kind of changes a few different variables with regard to how it can be used in up and beyond just a head to bed space. Just wanted to make that comment.
Yeah, good point there. Bleeding into the shared economy usage, which will be something exciting to look at once we get a full-on analysis of the building with Teresa and her team. I think they're going to view the place tomorrow, so we should have some more fidelity on what that will look like after tomorrow.
Those Murphy beds, are they queen? Are those the queens you're referring to?
Yes, they are.
So, Kev, this is Shonda. Good evening. I have a question for you. So, as it relates to the parking garages, are they in close proximity to this hotel?
I honestly don't know. Like I said, we'll get more fidelity on parking and some other aspects of the building. But the key here really is transparency with guests, right? And we've just got to understand, at least from our standpoint, that when folks travel downtown in America, we know that parking issues to be true. So as long as we're transparent, whether it's a mile away or right behind the facility, then we don't compromise what we're offering to guests.
Hey, Alvin, I live down there, and there are a ton of parking lots, like within walking distance, like right behind the hotel.
Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. Great question too, Shonda. Heba, thanks for hopping on. I was just bragging about you earlier, about the work you did there in Arlington this week.
Thanks.
So if you're looking...
Hey, Kev, it's Mike. Quick question I had before you jump to the next slide. In regards to the rooms, so not too familiar with the actual building. How many floors are in this hotel? And around, I guess, are these units all spread out? Are they on a set number of floors? Just want to get an idea of that.
12 floors, I think 108 total units in the building.
Okay. And last question, you might have touched on already, is the hotel, is it no longer functioning as a hotel, or just using specific things are still happening as a normal functioning hotel?
So that's a great question. This is just based on our conversations, meeting with the owners and Teresa. It'll be residential for short-term rental use, but they'll maintain some functionality for general areas. Obviously, it's a commercial mixed-use space that's going to have your restaurant downstairs, and then all of the other resources that the hotel is going to provide will have to be maintained by a traditional quote unquote staff for the hotel, but everything that happens on the short-term rental side will be specific to the operators.
Gotcha. Thanks. And the units that you have, are they? It looks like they're all studios, right? Are there any 2 bedrooms as well?
No, not to my knowledge. No 2 bedrooms. Certainly not the ones that were positioned to us.
Okay. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike.
Hey, how you doing, Kev? This is Leo.
Hey, Leo, how are you?
What's going on? I had a quick question about the unique large group point that you mentioned. I was curious, would that be, or is there any concern in regards to it being hindered due to the corona situation? Would it be any future concern of people above basically putting that to a halt, or are you pretty confident that shouldn't be a problem?
Yeah, you're putting me in a role of a CDC director, which I'm not prepared to do. But I tell you, just like I mentioned to another group, right? We offer the accommodation. We don't make decisions for other adults. Within our listing in the summary, we do have a blurb about current CDC conditions. Oh, I'm sorry, it's in the house rules. So we do annotate that, right? Because we allow gatherings, right? Social gatherings at most of our places. So we are cognizant of that. We put the blurb from the CDC into the house rules, which we all know when guests book your place, they also agree to your house rules. So the information's out there. We won't stop adults from having an activity that they plan for. We're just telling them, hey, we want you to be aware and practice safe social gatherings if you're going to book the place. But great question.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, Cap, Mike, it's Mike again. One other question on the just proximity where these units are located. Are they are we talking about, are they spread out throughout the 12 floors? Are they sitting on the, above floor 5, above floor 6, or are we on the ground floor? Just want to get an idea of that.
Oh, I'm sorry. So yes, floors 7 through 12 or so, with the potential to add more. Not particularly sure yet where those would be or what that would look like, but right now, floors 7 through 10, or 7 through 12, 7 through 11, with a couple position on the 12th floor, which are all gone, by the way.
Gotcha. Just with this is a different scenario with the hotel. I'm sure you might know.
Mm-hmm.
Rates would fluctuate with the floor you're on, right? Or did that even come to mind?
No, absolutely right. Corner units, higher floor units, especially the 12th floor. 12th floor has larger units. Its proximity to the rooftop bar naturally lends itself to you being able to host larger groups. Proximity to the rooftop bar then gives you sort of a unique space in the building, which then allows you to charge more. Corner units, obviously, and then based on size, everything else really just comes back to initially the head to bed ratio for each of the rooms.
Thanks.
You bet. Thanks, Mike. Okay, so I'll talk other things and then the timeline overall. So right now, again, we're doing work in Newark. So teams are already assembled and on site, which means we have local resources to tap into. Kenny's also on this call, who's in Newark. He's from Newark. He's an investor in Newark and Arlington, and he and Peterson and some of his associates there are helping out with our current effort. So having boots on the ground there locally helps, especially as we get ready to take on an effort as large as this one. I won't talk too much about DAC, but DAC is an app that it's designed to increase your guest experience. So bottom line here is, as you look at the financial analysis, you'll see where we normally do upcharges for early arrival, late checkout, pet fees, parking in some cases. What DAC will do for us in this case is it will put all of that in the guest's hands from one app. So it'll allow us to really bring some efficiency to upselling our early arrivals, our late checkouts, wine if that's what you choose, parking spots because there'll be a commodity in that part of the city, or anything else that you can creatively come up with that may be of value to a guest. You can build it in the app, and because the guests get a link to download it upon booking, it'll allow you to directly upsell from the app. That'll be likely in place by the time we get into this investment. They're currently working on integration with IGMS, which is the channel manager software. The party rooms, I won't talk too much about it, but just understanding the nature of hotels, space that's available, we'll have some peer space opportunity in there, and I can talk at another time about what that would look like across the board for investors. Laundry service will be provided by the hotel, and guests will have an option to upgrade those services. I don't have that much more information on what that'll look like, but we do know there'll be service that will be provided. The timeline here again, from now getting to around mid-August to early September. This isn't consistent with what I had on the first slide, but mid-August to early September is what we're targeting. If things move along a little faster, I'll be sure to update any investors that are coming in via Basecamp once they're at it. So the money slides, and again, presuming everyone has had a chance to take a look at these, the line item breakdown. But bottom line here, big picture on the left-hand side, what you're paying for in terms of the price differentials are largely based on the size of the units and their location. So the smaller units, which start off here somewhere around 320 or so square foot, are priced less, and the larger rooms, in this case, which the 12th floor ones are already gone. But as we go up in square footage, the price we're being charged goes up. The utilities will be included, as I understand it. Furnishings, we're estimating right now decor heavy, but we'll add ideally our own touch with the design teams to each room. So we want to make sure we properly allocate funds toward that. Vendor teams, again, these are the help that's aggregated around the design team to help build things out and locally resource efforts on the ground to put things together, and our standard admin fee for leading the project from start to finish there. Other things to note here. Again, I'm switching over to the middle column here on the income. You'll see 4 rows down, upsells, as I mentioned in the previous slide. Pet fees in most cases per month, we're looking at somewhere between $100 to $300 in some cases a month in upsells. And we do this right now through the Resolution Center and Airbnb, which could be a little painful. Another key thing to note here are cleaning fee overages. And all this is, it is a creative way of allowing investors to keep some of that overage income. And all that means is that we may charge guests $150 for cleaning, but we're only paying the housekeeping team, for example, $100. So if you have a $50 overage there, you count that per booking. And what that does is it then allows you to offset supplies or, maybe the internet costs. So that becomes important how we position the cleaning fees to allow you to have some overages that help reduce costs in some other area. And then of course, the upsells. And if I can lend anything to you based on my experience, upsells are key, right? We start talking about profit margins and some of the miscellaneous costs that come along with running short-term rentals, where you can offset costs through upsells, helps your bottom line. So we do it well now, that's why I'm excited about the DAC app, because its primary use in this case, at least for us, will be to position the upsell of some of these resources for guests. And going over to the right, under expenses again, you'll see rent, and then we maintain automation. We don't pass that cost on to guests. We just absorb it through the management fees. Internet, if it's going to be through the same company, right now it's positioned, I think a 200 megabyte deal is somewhere around $45. I've got it positioned at 50 here. Supplies for units this size should not run more than $25 a month. I don't have a management fee tied in here simply because based on the investor, they come in at a different fee. We start out at 15%. In some cases, if you're investing in more than one property, you'll get a lower management fee for your investment. So just understand the management fees there. It's just not reflected in here because there are differences in who gets what. I will pause here for any questions.
I had to jump off real quick. Somebody called. You touched base about the Turo part. What was, I guess, the option with DAC for that?
Hey, Mitchell, thanks for hopping on. Yes, an option. And again, I don't want to dive too far into some of the other amenities that could be offered or investors could get into. But in an ideal situation, when we start to talk about the sharing economy as a whole and being able to resource shared economy assets at a downtown location with its proximity to the airport, a Turo rent-a-car option that you upsell through DAC would be ideal in this case. And if an investor came to me and say, "Hey, what do you think about this?" I'd say it's a great investment opportunity that will thrive based on the location, and then being able to market it not only within the city but also potentially to guests. So you essentially have a larger demographic there that you're able to target with that resource.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question on the management fee. You said it starts at 15%. 15% of what exactly? The revenue or the profits?
It's 15% of the gross revenue. So the way Airbnb is set up, you can set up what's called a split payment option. So what we do in this case is whatever the management fee is, we will set that up inside the platform. So that comes off the gross revenue. So when you get paid after each payout, what you receive is minus the management fees. So your only cost that you will get billed for, I don't want to say only cost, but in a perfect scenario, the only thing you'll get billed for will be the cleaning fees. So normally we will absorb the cleaning fees throughout the month, and then we will just send you a bill, which is just recapturing the cleaning fees that you were paid, that we paid to the housekeeper on your behalf. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, great question. Any other questions from the group?
Hey, Cap, this is Sean. Just real quick, you'd mentioned the restaurant and the rooftop bar. I went back and I was looking at some of the reviews for when it was a hotel, and the restaurant seems to be a really big deal. Is there any timeline from the current owners or who the folks that are going to be the owners as to the timeline as to when those two things would actually be up and running?
I'll see. Teresa, are you still on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Did you catch the question regarding timeline for the hotel to be operational? I'm sorry, not the hotel, the restaurant rooftop bar.
So we're interviewing a couple of different entities, and we're going from there. We're hoping, everything will be completed within 6 months, completed everything. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Teresa. Any other questions from the group? Something's got to be.
What's the I guess the legal or ordinance temperature there in Newark? I'm on the West Coast, so I'm not really up to speed on the East Coast.
Well, it's certainly not Los Angeles, right?
Out.
Yeah, I see the road bumps, right? For every investor on the West Coast in Los Angeles County, keep coming up with zeros. But Newark currently does not have a regulation against short-term rentals, and more specifically, mixed-use buildings, which also provides a huge advantage, and even in most locales, right? If you're operating in a mixed-use building, in most cases they don't fall under residential rules. So this will be a safe space. And another thing to note here is that the owners and developers, they are tied in with the city. The decision to turn this into a residential platform was in conjunction with going to the city, right? So we are operating in a safe space here in Newark, and I'll point back to why, right? Why Newark, with New York City and Jersey City being heavily regulated, and as things pick back up in New York City, the international travel mecca of the country, we'll be positioned to absorb the international population that's coming through the city, coming to visit New York City.
Thanks.
So come out east, join the party.
Cav, this is Amber from SFIA.
Amber, how are you? Great seeing you again.
Very good. Thanks. Quick question for you. How do the nightly rates in this investment compare with, since I feel like this investment is more closely related to just regular hotels than other Airbnb types would be. So how do these nightly rates compare to hotels in the area?
I think we'll do better simply because of the added amenities. I mean, when you think about this from a short-term rental standpoint, the amenities that are offered in the building that guests will have access to, they're far beyond what the local market, short-term rental market, has to offer. So I wouldn't necessarily be, more concerned about what other hotel prices are as much as I would be other short-term rentals in the market. The hotels will fluctuate as they do, but we'll just be able to offer a better product at the end of the day, and we'll be able to tie the amenities and resources into our offering to make it that much more better.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Coach. I had to step out for a second, but I'm probably going to ask a couple questions that's already been answered. But
hey, what's up, man? How are you?
What's up? What's the initial investment, and what's your time till launch?
So initial, it depends on a unit. I'll go down here to the first. So you're looking anywhere 13 to 13.6, right? All in, which covers every aspect of getting the listings up, administrative costs as far as rent, security deposit, and what we are allocating for vendors and furnishing costs.
Okay. And what size units?
They'll range from the smaller units, which are somewhere around 320, to the larger, at least the largest that's left. I think they're like 430 or 440 square foot.
Okay.
And you had a question about timeline. Right now, estimated mid-August to early September timeline. Which let me harp on that for a second. Which the investors right now in Newark are getting a chance to experience some of what we do with virtual renderings for listings that allow us to take items from a professional design board. We get them virtually rendered to put into the actual space, empty photo of the unit that we're going to operate in, and we have that space built out virtually. That allows us to position units on each platform. In some cases, weeks ahead of time, as we're doing in Newark right now. I think all 13 units currently have 1 or 2 or more reservations, and the lease date hasn't even started yet. So the further out we are with our ability to do that, including disclaimers in the listing, so guests understand the photos are virtually rendered and not an actual depiction of what the design teams will bring as the final product. But it allows us to start collecting funds ahead of launch date. So that's always exciting to be able to bring to the table and start seeing cash flow in your investment ahead of the lease start date.
So, Kat, again, one more question. The $1,000 discount, has it already been taken off of the $13,000 or the $13,600 price?
No, you're coming in early. That's the early bird price. Anyone coming in after where we project the closing date to be on or about they're going to come in at a higher price. So anyone that's coming in ahead of that window will get the prices that are listed here.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. I do owe it to everybody, especially those of you that haven't invested in a short-term rental or with us before. I refuse to leave taxes out of the discussion because I think at the end of the day, it becomes the center of gravity. And what I want you all to understand is short-term rentals are considered an active investment. So if you're familiar with taxes and the principles of taxes, it either be an ordinary, meaning everybody's doing it, or it's necessary in order to make a profit. Short-term rentals and Airbnb fall into the necessary column, which means just about 100% of your expenses in this case will go into the loss column. Those losses for an active investment are filed on Schedule C return. Don't allow your short-term rental losses to be filed on Schedule E with any traditional real estate investments you may have. Schedule C losses offset taxable W-2 income. The money you ultimately save there increases your year-end profit margins, right? So all the government's saying is that we're not going to punish you as a producer providing goods and services to consumers. We're going to take your losses. We're going to reduce your tax liability on your taxable income. And then what happens to the net profit from your business? If you're following what's happening here, right? That money that you made, it's protected because the government's allowing you to reduce your tax liability, right? With your losses offset your tax liability first before they decide to take what little money you made in your business efforts. So the year of starting your short-term rental is typically the year you'll take most of your losses because you have an initial investment that goes on top of everything else you spend on a monthly basis to include all of your utilities, your housekeeping costs, your miscellaneous costs. Everything you dump into that investment will go into your Schedule C loss. So the more the merrier in this case. And if you start to approach this from a tax standpoint, and invest in short-term rentals as a tax strategy, then you will come to understand why those of us that arbitrage love the model, because it helps us reduce our tax liability significantly. So I wanted to make sure that I at least put that on the table so it helped you understand that your investment into this investment, if you decide to do it, or when you decide to invest in short-term rentals, understand your taxes and how short-term rentals position you to leverage, right, your year-end profit margins. The second point I'll make about that is what I call deal breakers, right? When you think about this from a tax standpoint, it helps you make more logical decisions, right? And I always go back to the coffee pot and the Keurig decision. If I asked each of you what you choose, I'm going to get a number of different answers. But for the person or the investor that's thinking about this from a tax standpoint, Cav wants you to invest your dollars in something that has depreciation value, right? Which means I'm going to tell you, go get a coffee pot because you're offering the service that you promised when you check that box, and spend more money on a bed, right? Or a piece of furniture that has a tax implication, right? It's a depreciable item, which means you get to carry that over, right? So that starts to change the mindset or the mind frame of of what you're spending and how you're spending it initially. The third thing I'll offer you is when you get into this business, then you drag, right, your personal expenses and your personal life along with you. And you do that by listing your personal home, right? Because once you're in the business, you are in the business. You are operating as an Airbnb investor, right? So you list your personal home, right? Which then means it's part of the business, which then means the things you have to provide for that business are necessary expenses in order to make a profit, right? So I'm not going to tell you to go and buy the new couch that you've always wanted for the business now instead of your personal, but I'm telling you it's doable, right? I don't want to give you tax advice because I'm not a tax advisor yet, but what I want you to start to think about is everything you're doing personally when you're starting to operate this type of business that has the potential to operate from the space you sleep, then allows you to take necessary costs or necessary items in that home that are necessary in order to make a profit and position those costs against the business because it's a necessary cost. So if you follow my train and my logic here, I'm just telling you that this can become very beneficial once you get the train started and you move in the right direction. And at the end of the day, I want you to use this more as a tax strategy, right, than a end of the month, what am I making strategy, right? Because, you know, most units will do well. But if we understand it from a tax standpoint and we start to leverage it with our investment and at home, right? And then, right, the lunch that you typically go talk to your friends or girlfriends about, then you're talking about your investment, which, you know, then brings that into the business and so forth, so on. So I'll leave you with that. So unless there are any more questions, I'll hang on for another minute. And again, thanks everybody for coming on. And if there are any, you know, additional questions or concerns about the investment, anyone ready to move forward, please just shoot me a note and we'll position the MOU for you to get started. So I'll hang out here for another minute if there are any questions.
Thanks, Cap.
T-Dub, thank you.
Hey, Kev, I've got a quick question for you. Just based on your, Mike, with your research in Newark, are there any other scenarios like this that you're aware of with, you know, that hotels currently today that have Airbnbs in the, I guess, in nearby proximity of this location?
No, not even close. The market, they're barely touching 800 rentals, and most of those aren't even active. Active Airbnb investments, meaning they're operating 6 months or more a year, over 180 days a year. So it's a growing market to say the least.
And the top, you mentioned the top floor is sold out from what you shared a little earlier. As far as the event spaces there, are those also on the rooftop area? Are those like conference rooms or whatever have be for, you know, larger groups? Is that all on the roof, or is that ground level of the building?
Hey, Teresa, can you answer that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, we're building additional spaces, but there's one in the restaurant area, and there is one on the second floor that Queen Latifah just used to hold her whole, you know, they just filmed Equalizer there. So to hold down the fort, she utilized that room. So there is a couple of different spaces.
Thanks, Teresa.
No, thanks for that input. That's good feedback. I didn't do and this. I'm curious the current state of these rooms right now. Are they like in top shape, hotel ready? I don't even know how old the building is. I know it's historic, but I was just curious the current state and kind of what you guys are working with to get them to rent ready.
Cav, did you want me to touch on that?
Yes, please. You've seen it.
Yeah, so the rooms are definitely operational. So that's not an issue at all. Actually, when I did a walkthrough, I mean, they could even keep it the way they have it and still operate. However, my suggestion was the Murphy beds, which are from Italy. They're beautiful. They're gorgeous. And when they fold up, they turn into a couch as well. And then we're doing wine coolers next to the bed. So we're just adding a lot of value. I mean, you can't beat the value. This was a Prudential, by the way, I just wanted to throw this in there. Prudential does shows and has events all the time. And this hotel was always booked completely out for that. So, I mean, you have a lot of different venues right? That's going to add a lot of people coming in and can also adjust your price values up.
Thanks, Teresa.
Thanks. That's good. And these again, these are just studio rooms. There's no additional sink or any type of, cooking type scenario within this space,
no,
or is it?
We are doing that. We are doing that. Not to cut you off, but I know what you're getting to. So we are putting in kitchenettes with sinks. We're putting in. We're debating now whether we want to do an electric stove, a full electric stove, or not. I think they're heading towards doing that. And a high-end microwave. So it will function as, again, we are doing residential. So it's going to be, the amenities in the space itself will function as residential. So you will have a refrigerator, you will have a stove, you will have a microwave, you will have a whole counter space.
No, that's good. Hey, last question I know we're coming to the top of it here. Now, with the so the units that you have locked down at the moment, just to my knowledge, are there other Airbnbs that you know of that are in that building, or you have them all at the moment?
No, there'll be other operators in the building, certainly.
Okay. Thanks.
Good. Thanks, Mike. All right. Hey, thanks again, team, for allowing me to take up an hour and a half of your life that you'll never get back. So hopefully it was of some value to you all. And for some of the current Newark investors, Sean, Amber, Kiera, thanks for hopping on. Kenny also holding it down in Newark. Thanks, Teresa, for your value added. Boots on the ground representative for the management group there. We'll go ahead and end it. And again, feel free to reach out if you're interested, and we'll see you on the other side. Thanks again, everybody.